Hello and welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I am so pleased to have this edition of Why Are We Here? And as you see, I have an absolutely fabulous panel of people here. I have Katy Montgomerie, Matt Dillahunty, Scientist Mel, the African Humanist, and Brainbug. And everyone here is going to tell you a little bit about what they do and why. And they talk about what they do on YouTube, or they might talk about what they do outside of YouTube, some of the activism, some of the other things, and that is perfectly okay. And then we're just going to have a free discussion. And so anyone in the chat that might have questions for anyone in the panel, please feel free. But I probably will not get to any questions or comments, at least in the first 30 minutes of the show. So I might put it up on the screen, but we probably won't discuss it. So if you have something you want us to discuss, please hold it for a little bit later. All ideas are welcome here. If you want to express an idea that is completely in opposition to what someone says on the show, you are perfectly welcome to do so. But please do not make personal comments about people who are on the panel. Those will not be welcome. I do want to give a quick shout out to my artist. Hutch Holloway is my artist, and I told him about this program. And if he comes in the chat, he is the one person that I will stop you for and put up a comment that he makes, because I do want to support my artist. He is a college student, and he is transgender, and he has no support from family, and so things are a bit rough for him. And so, yeah. So a little love to Hutch Holloway, if he comes, we'll put that up. So with that, let's start with Katy Montgomerie. I am absolutely thrilled to have Katy here. I have had some advice from Katy on some of the videos that I have done, and Katy has helped put me in touch with some people in the trans community that I've needed to get in touch with. But this is the first time I've actually had Katy on my channel, so welcome, Katy.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here. Yeah, so I guess I'll just tell everyone what I do and who I am and stuff. So yeah, my name's Katy Montgomerie, and I am an advocate for LGBT rights and a feminist and an atheist. And that's my cat Poppy. I don't just have like a tail coming out of. So I became an atheist when I was 16, and I did lots of arguing about it with people in my surroundings and stuff. But once I sort of got over the hump of becoming an atheist, I didn't really think about it much again. And it was just kind of no longer a part of my life. I live in a part of the UK where there aren't many religious people, so it wasn't really a big deal for me. And then separately, later on in my life, when I was about 25, I came out as a trans woman. And that process was very difficult, like internally, and dealing with all the bullshit that comes with that. And that's what got me into advocating for LGBT rights and like really getting into feminism. But and in that time, I didn't really consider arguing about atheism or, pushing atheist activism or anything. And I kind of considered, like, I was like, atheism it's not so exciting to argue about, I guess, because for me, like, trans rights was like the big thing to argue about. And then I remember seeing a video, I think it was actually by Prophet of Zod, and him saying, like, it was his like coming out story as an atheist. And when he first said it, I was like, he was like, oh, I came out. I was like, coming out as an atheist, like, it's easy. What are you talking about? It's nothing compared to being a trans person. And then when I listened to his story and a few other people's ones, people lose their families and their friends and their jobs and like everything in their life, just the same as an LGBT person coming out. And I was like, this is like, coming out is definitely the right term for a lot of people. And for me, one of the most important things that allowed me to come out as an LGBT person and has allowed me to, exist and do everything that I want to do was having this representation, seeing successful trans people just like smashing it. And so I thought, well, I should be vocal about being an atheist too, because, some of the people who inspired me as a trans woman were just normal people just getting on in their everyday life, and they were just do something. Like there was this lady. So I'm also a metalhead, and there's a lady in a metal band and I just was like, I was really worried when I was coming out, like, can I still be a trans woman and be in a metal band? And then I just saw this trans lady in a metal band, and it just like cured that for me. I was just like, wow, I can do it. And you know, she wasn't making a deal of it. She wasn't being an activist or anything, but just, you know, seeing the representation.
It doesn't hurt that you can shred.
Thank you. Yes, if anyone wants to check out my band, it's called Dillahunty, and we're like thrash death band, and there's some shred in it. So, and there's going to be more shred in the next album. Yeah. So that's kind of like how I got into doing atheist activism stuff alongside LGBT advocacy stuff. But I guess the reason why anyone knows who I am at all is because I am a dickhead on Twitter, and I spend a lot of time and energy arguing on Twitter. Too much. I'm addicted to it. But I kind of just like going in and brawling with people, you know, like the worst people. To some degree, I enjoy it because winding up horrible people is quite satisfying. But also, I think that it's important to present a resistance to what they're saying and to correct misinformation. You know, people get very comfortable and confident in their ideas when they're all just repeating them to each other and they've got their own little echo chamber. It really strengthens their resolve, and it stops them from questioning themselves and all this kind of stuff. And if just one person turns up and is like, I actually disagree with everything you said and I'm really confident about it, then it can stop them from so confidently asserting bullshit in the future and can make them question things. So yeah, I guess
Okay.
that's the stuff I do.
Very good. That's really very interesting. Yeah, I kind of do the same thing on Twitter, although I'm not quite, in one way, I'm not as kind as you are, because I will go after people who are mainstream and people who are really not shitty people at all. I mean, you know, they're not saying things that are nasty or disinformation, but nevertheless, it still is what traps you in that echo chamber. Like you were talking about. And one of the biggest ones I go after is John Piper. And John Piper's, you know, a nice person. He's a sincere person, you know, as far as I can tell. But, you know, it's a lot of his teaching that kept me trapped in the, you know, the religious way of thinking for so long. And so that's why I think mainstream is just as much a target as...
You're lucky that he hasn't blocked you, because of all of the big anti-trans people, almost all of them have blocked me now for disagreeing with them because they don't like that. Yeah, I don't know. There were definitely some bigger religious people that the way they use Twitter is kind of different. I think they just kind of use it to announce things, and so when you reply to them, I don't even know if they see it. Like, do you see them arguing much? I know there are some like...
No, I never see him responding. I always end up arguing with people who follow him. And the thing that I find the most interesting is a lot of his own followers don't follow him. I mean, they do follow him in that they go, you know, they read what he has to say. But when I put Piper's own theology into my tweet, they will disagree with it. They'll say, that's not what the Bible says. And I said, well, that's what Piper says, you know, and I'll post one of Piper's sermons that has that exact point in it. Oh, you know, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite satisfying when someone looks up to someone and then they have opinion that disagrees with them, and then you like confront them on it and they have to quickly decide whether they're going to stick to their own view or they're going to back up their person that they like idolize. Yeah. Or just block you, or just have a massive contradiction right in front of them and pretend they don't. I think they're common responses.
And thank you, Ricardo, for the super chat. And yeah, I'm glad that you are stargazing there. And Fran Wilson says, I'm here to serve my cat.
Can I just clarify really quick for the people in the YouTube chat that Katie's eye makeup is like super on point and it really bright, and it's losing some of its color, at least for me over on YouTube. And I just wanted to point out seeing it this way is clear.
Probably change the color a little bit.
She's a walking masterpiece. That's what he's saying.
Oh, thank you. Let's see if I can change the colors. Yeah.
She put way more effort into her looks tonight. I like threw on a shirt and I'm like, I'm gonna be late, but that's okay.
I combed my hair.
I need to wash mine. That's a goal tomorrow.
I wasn't going to shave, but then I sat down in front of the camera and it was just me and Katie and Granny, and we were like, I think I better go shave. I better go shave right now.
I love makeup. I mean, it's after 1 a.m. here, and I've got lipstick on and makeup on. I love makeup. I can't do without makeup.
It's good in lockdown because normally I'll do makeup to go out or whatever, but no one's going out, so it's like to come on these shows is an excuse to do like fun eyeshadow and stuff. So
So Esther, tell us a little bit. Well, one of the things that Esther needs to tell us is a little bit about how she came to be an atheist, as well as a little bit about her own channel. So go ahead, Esther.
Right. So it's actually a pleasure to be on this panel tonight, because some of the people who have helped me to become an atheist today are actually on this panel. So I'm grinning from ear to ear. I'm really excited. So I grew up in Africa, Nigeria to be precise. I'm half Nigerian, and I grew up going to church. That was the life I knew. We didn't know any other thing apart from, I didn't even know what the word atheist was. All I knew was those people who believed in, there were Christians, there were Muslims, and there were people who didn't believe. And that's how I grew up. And, going to church, you wear your Sunday best to church. And, emphasis was placed on you being your best at church. But I grew up in one of these fundamental churches where on the weekend, they would say, oh, we're going to watch the movies. And instead of watching anything Disney, we would be taken to church to go and watch films like The Burning Hell and The Pilgrim's Progress and those sorts of things. So from a very young, tender age, I was traumatized by the concept of hell. And I would give my life to Christ nearly every day. And, this just carried on. And everything I did was the will of God. God had to be the deciding factor. And so even I was married for 10 years, and that was quote unquote the will of God, because that was the man God had chosen for me. And so when I came to the UK, we were told to carry on, that here in the UK, the version of Christianity is too watered down. That in Africa, we have our Christianity is closest to God. We were this close to God, while here in the UK, it was too watered down. They don't serve God. They serve the devil. They're just in a world of their own. So when I came to the UK, I carried on going to the African version of church. And I stepped foot into a Church of England, and I loved it. And I was wondering, why did these people tell us that these people were devil worshipping? They're so nice. How can these people be devil worshipping? And so, anyways, I think I was just really eager. I was a member of the choir. I've always been a member of choirs. Everywhere I've been, I will always be a part of the choir. I've taught children in the children's church. Behind me, I've got my certificate. That was my certificate. I was on the path to becoming a priest in the Church of England. But it was the differences where I'd been and the Church of England that got me. I started asking questions that didn't make sense, and questions that people couldn't really answer. And I went to the and started to ask him. And when he told me he didn't believe in hell, that got me. How don't you believe in hell? And so I went online, went on YouTube, and I found the Atheist Experience. And that was it was a roller coaster. My Sunday evenings, it was from Talk Heathen to Atheist Experience, and to anybody else who is on the panel with Matt and the others. I've got to know who they are, what their channels are, and I've got to go and find them. And so let's just say I never made it into becoming a priest. And I've come out to everyone who cares to listen and cares to hear. I no longer believe, and I am now an atheist. It's hard for people to understand. A family member told me it's unacceptable. Being an atheist is unacceptable. But it's a journey that I'm still on. But I've started the YouTube channel because I realize now there's a lot of things we were lied to. There were so many lies. And in Africa, it's the Christianity there. I mean, the pastor, one pastor has 4 private jets, and for some reason thinks he's entitled to it. And his members are so poor, they cannot feed. And nobody can question because he is chosen by God. And so these are the things that get me. I think I've got to say something. I've got to be voiced. I see things every day and I'm enraged. And so I'm not so much active on Twitter. I'm more active on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I'm making my voice known on Instagram. And I also, because I'm half Nigerian, and in Nigeria, it's you get 14 years if you're caught in the act of being gay and being, LGBTQ. It's a no-go area in a lot of African countries, and in Nigeria, it's been criminalized. It's 14 years if you're caught, and so I'm in a lot of the secret groups. I consider myself an ally. And there are tons and tons of people who are LGBTQ, but they're in the closet. But there's so many. It's unbelievable. And so I'm in these groups, showing my support and just being a part of them. And I get people coming, how come you're supporting LGBT? Well, it's none of your business. And I can only do this because I live in the UK.
So in Nigeria, I know you said 14 years for being gay or LGBTQ plus, but is it a crime to be an atheist as well? If you're
in some parts, it's not. Nigeria is a secular state, but religion plays a really big role in the country. And in some parts of the country, there's the Sharia law. And in those places, being an atheist can get you in jail.
I think in some areas there's the death penalty for trans people, actually, in Nigeria.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really extreme.
Not exactly being trans. It's
like cross-dressing or something.
Being caught in the act. So what's happening now, there's what they call KITO, KITO. Keto people are people who pose online. They go into dating apps and go into dating, and they lure people, transgender, lesbian, gay, who they lure them out on the pretense of coming for a date, a hookup, whatever. And when they come out, they get them in this compromising, take photos of them, or threaten them and start to blackmail. And so the good thing with a lot of the secret groups is they've got I'm in one of these groups called the Keto Diaries, where people who've had some encounter with a keto person shares the details with everybody in the Keto Diaries, so they know the face, the name, the username, telephone number, and sometimes they gang up and go and challenge these keto people. It's interesting. It's a big world. There's so much
scary.
That's a really interesting story, Esther. Brainbug, tell us a bit about yourself and your channel.
My channel, I have bugs, obviously, but my thing is mostly I counter pseudoscience and misinformation, usually about animals and evolution. I use a lot of my creatures to do that. I guess I could say the origin of my YouTube channel was the murder hornets thing last spring, and it really gave me the push to say, you know what, people just believe anything you tell them. If you say something about a bug or insects, they'll just that's the most deadly spider in the world. Oh, these will kill you. Praying mantises are venomous. I've heard it all, and it's like, you know what, it's time to start debunking some of that stuff. Before that, though, I did like bug shows at like schools and at birthday parties and stuff, where we bring out the bugs and talk about them, educate the kids a little bit on especially on spiders, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about spiders and their ecological role. And through that, and I've always been one to love animals and learn all I can about them. I spend my free time looking at at peer review ecology papers and stuff like that. So I'm a huge nerd. But by doing that, I amassed like a huge base of knowledge in ecology. So I've been here recently using that to kind of deplatform some ideas that are being put forward by like young Earth creationist movements and flat Earth movements and things like that, because somebody's got to do it. These people, I'm not going to say any names, but there's somebody that I've been dealing with who has almost I don't know, it's a small number maybe, but 10,000 subscribers. That's 10,000 people tuning in to listen to this person misinform them about science, and somebody's got to challenge that. So I figured I'd take my knowledge base and throw some bugs in here to keep it interesting and kind of challenge these ideas.
I so appreciate. Why am I getting an echo? Did I do something wrong? Okay. I so appreciate people like you, Brainbug. I was arguing with theology with someone on Twitter who insisted on asking me about evolution. About every other tweet, it was, yeah, but evolution isn't true. Yeah, but evolution isn't true. And we're not even talking. I said, finally, all right, you want to talk about evolution? And I tagged 4 scientists. I tagged Mel. I tagged Mama Atheist. I tagged Chad Hall. And I tagged Erica, Guts It Given. And I said, fine, you want to talk evolution? These guys will talk evolution with you.
I didn't even have to do anything. Everybody else just jumped right in. I'm like, y'all, here you go. I'll be over here and come back up.
Yeah. There's things like that. Exactly. It's saying evolution isn't true. We observe it. It's evolution is the observation. The theory of evolution is our explanation for what we observe, or our best explanation for what we observe. That's what that is. And there's a lot of conflation that goes on there with the terminology, but they'll play with that with things like the Big Bang, calling it an explosion. It's expansion, cosmic expansion. We're still in the throes of it right now. That's why we have redshift, which tells us the planet is not flat. So, and not young.
One of the like, I guess, growing up moments I had, there's like when you're young, you kind of just think, well, the newspapers just print the truth. And then you realize that they just lie.
Daily Mail.
I think that's part of the problem with the older generation, with Matt's generation, is that they grew up that they grew up and you could trust the media for the most part. But as we moved into the internet age, and anybody could put anything out there they want, and these people all their life had this mentality that you could trust what you're seeing.
They're saying that, like, the part for me growing up, realizing that the media can lie, was actually a story about spiders in the Daily Mail, and the headline was "Cannibal spiders come to the UK," and my first thought was like, all spiders are cannibals. Why is that an issue? And they meant spiders eat people. So I was like, well, that's not true either. So then I looked up, and it was about false widows, and they were like, oh, they can give you necrotizing fasciitis, and I was like, well, that's not true. And then I read more and more of the article, and it was just stacked full of lies. They were like, they're the most venomous spiders in Europe. Like, it was all just nonsense. And then to cap it all off, the picture at the bottom was of a harvestman and wasn't even a spider. And I was just like, who writes this garbage? Like,
it's freaking Daily Mail.
That's true. And I was like, well, the media's broken.
Thank you, Daily Mail, for the
I also want to know what generation you think I'm in.
Are you generation X?
Yes, I'm X.
I'm Gen X, guys.
I'm a boomer. I'm older than that.
I'm a millennial.
I'm fucking surprising.
But Matt, when you were, because the 80s is what I think of. I was little, but you were a teenager. Did you get that mentality built in that you could trust, like, what you saw on the evening news was going to be factual information?
Probably, mostly.
Yeah.
It depended on the news for me. I'm like right on the line between millennial and Gen X, so I just kind of like. But yeah, for me, I don't know. I didn't watch. I watched some news, but I didn't watch a whole lot of news. We had like 5 channels for a very long time because we were poor. So it's like
we only had 4. So
I would argue that the evening news when I was a kid,
we had 4,
was largely accurate. I bet if you went back and watched those, you'd find that they're incredibly accurate because there wasn't that much news to report, and they were all trained to never put any spin on it.
Yeah, Dan Rather. Yeah. I love Dan Rather. I still read all of his stuff.
Though? When did
Fox News won a lawsuit in the last year, a defamation lawsuit, by stating that the talking heads on Fox News are entertainers and no one in their right mind would take them seriously. They actually won a lawsuit on that.
Tucker Carlson, I remember that. They're using the Alex Jones defense.
I was going to say Alex seriously.
Tucker Carlson, just as an aside, something I learned this week, I watched a show about a trans woman. It's a docu series called Lady in the Dale, about the Dale car. And it was about a woman, a trans woman, who generated 20th century motors to make a 3-wheeled car. She was a hustler. She hustled people. She was fantastic at it. But one of the news reporters, Tucker Carlson's dad, is super transphobic and had, I think, 37 stories about her, never used the correct pronouns, would always refer to her as a man masquerading as a woman, but she lived as a woman for the rest of her life. It wasn't a masquerade. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. HBO Max, Lady in the Dale, fantastic and amazing story. I really enjoyed it. Tucker Carlson's dad's a jerk, by the way. I hate him.
I think Mel's up anyway. Go ahead.
Yep. I was just about to say, Mel, your turn.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. So I'm known as Scientist Mel on the interwebs. I do primarily science types of shows. I also debunk a lot of the nonsense. In my actual day job, I'm a budding chemistry professor. And so I do a lot of writing online courses. I'm working on a side project to do open education resources, trying and collaborating with PZ Myers and so like using openstacks.org. So we'll have actual college level courses that people can view with free textbooks that are available online. How cool would that be for you to learn a
That
little
is
chemistry?
so cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the most expensive part of going to school.
It really is. And so I'm about to fill out another grant to see if I can get funding for my open education resource for the college that I work at. But there's a lot of overlap there. So on my YouTube channel, I just take really difficult topics and try to break it down into more accessible language, because I find that a lot of people do not understand science, not because they can't, but the language is just words people don't use. You don't go to the store and talk about, hey, let's talk about particle collisions. It's just, they don't
normalize that though. I want to start hearing those conversations.
It's like, how about I collide your particles of mine? You up for that? What's going on? Do we want effective collisions or ineffective collisions? That's make the chemistry happen. But nobody uses language like that. So to take really difficult concepts and break it down into more accessible bites, that's pretty much what I do. And I've done stuff for NASA, and I've done stuff for the Francis Crick Institute. And now I'm working with the college where I'm at, bringing in other speakers. And one of the cool things that I've been able to do, particularly in my community, because 70% of our students are poverty line. And so we spend a lot of time working with these students, helping them gain an education to come out of poverty. It's in one of our phrases is from poverty to prosperity. And so I'm able to connect from the work that I've done in my science communication with some amazing speakers to bring them in and make them accessible to, my students. And we have 4 different campuses. And that's one of the things that they've never done before. Have a remote speaker. Doc Savage, who's been on my channel before, has actually done a talk on COVID-19, what the vaccine is, because there's a lot of vaccine resistance in certain communities because of distrust among doctors. There's a bit of racism that's within our community to where they don't want to get a vaccine because they're afraid, because freaking racism. So having experts be accessible to the general population to allow them to ask questions without fear of, they're going to think I'm dumb. It's a very, very valuable thing, and it's an extremely rewarding thing that I get to do. So, and also thank you for having me on here. This is really cool.
You are so welcome. I can so relate to what you were saying about the vocabulary. I've told a number of people that I promote Aaron Rod's phylogeny series, but watching the first 3 episodes was so difficult because there were so many words in there that he uses that I didn't understand. But once you get through enough of the vocabulary to get through 3, then the rest of them are easy. And I've told a couple people this. I know I looked up the word eukaryote at least 4 times because I've never used that word before. Okay, I hear it, I looked it up, but it's not sticking because it's just not something I ever use.
You don't walk around and go, hey, where's your eukaryotes at in a grocery store? You don't. You don't.
It should be a lot of
You would think there'd be a lot of eukaryotes there.
Even worse than like new words, like eukaryotes, is when science uses a word in a different way to how we use it in like general speech. And like if someone says, oh, that looks smooth or something, and you're like, no, that's technically not smooth. Like smooth is like a physics concept or something like that. Like there are so many words that have like a science meaning where it means specifically this.
Polysemic words, or philosophy versus science versus the colloquial.
Yeah.
Theory. I can't tell you how many times I have had to lecture on the difference between fact, law, theory, hypothesis, scientific law, scientific theory.
It's just theory.
It's not law and order.
We can thank Sir Arthur Conan Doyle for that. By the way, he started having Sherlock Holmes say that, and that's
really
that took off.
He also He's also responsible for the thing like whatever it is, take away all the probabilities and whatever's left, even if implausible.
Yes. The Doyle fallacy. It's part of my magic show to actually talk about the Doyle fallacy. But
oh, really?
Maybe if we had like emojis that were representative of difficult scientific concepts, because I think part of the problem is if you're going to call something a phylogeny explorer, you've already started using language people don't use. You should have just said animal family tree explorer.
Yeah. Or like emojis to what am I trying to say? Emojis to communicate like logical fallacies would be great, because some knobhead on Twitter writes you 5 tweets and then you just put the like, this is a straw man fallacy, just like a straw man or something. Save you loads of typing, wouldn't it?
I just send them an eggplant every time.
I spend a lot of time on my channel doing that. I'll have like the scientific name for an animal or a clade or a group, and I'll explain it a little bit. So that actually, I'm trying to bring the language to the layperson, to the average person, bring that language to them so that they can understand that when you say this, you mean this. When you say homologies versus analogies, you mean, that this group has these features because they've evolved the same, because they shared a common ancestor to have those features, whereas these two groups would have the feature because they convergently evolved that feature. So things like that, I'm trying to make these words understandable. I don't know about the UK, but here in the US, our education system really failed us on that, especially in the South.
That's where I am.
Mel was
notoriously worse than ours. But ours isn't great, but it's yeah.
What were you saying, African Humanist?
You were saying something about the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's been, for some reason, I'm not sure why, the Africans and the preachers and what they've been peddling with the vaccine. At first, they were trying to say that the coronavirus was an attack on Christianity because churches were made to close, but shopping malls and the markets were open. How can you close people's lifeline? So some pastors were saying it's an attack on Christianity. And then when the vaccines came, people were saying they were going to inject you with the mark of the beast, and the vaccine is said to kill Black people. And there's just been so many conspiracy theories. And I've had, on Saturday, I had my first shot.
Oh, yay. Congrats. I want mine.
Nice.
I had my first shot. But when I told my brother I was going to have it, he said, "Are you sure you really want to have it? It's too soon. They haven't done this trial. They haven't, he tried to discourage me." So what I decided to do, when I get the date for my vaccine, I wouldn't tell anyone. I'll go and have my vaccine, and after it's done, then I will say, "Look, I've had the vaccine and nothing happened to me." So yeah, I've had my first one, and can't wait to get the second vaccine and to say to them, "Look, I haven't got the mark of no beast. No one's trying to kill anybody.
And
go and take your vaccine."
And to be fair, like in the history of the U.S., there have been so many unethical procedures that have been done on the Black community.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
It's completely understandable why they would not trust medical science.
They did actually create a vaccine or something for something and go over to somewhere in Africa, and it was just forced sterilization, and it was a lie. So I can totally understand why they wouldn't trust American or Western scientists.
And I get that, which is why it's really, really important for us to allow access to experts to be able to sit there and talk about it. And not just white people like myself, but people of color to be able to talk about the science to bridge that gap. But it's a huge problem, particularly in the South. We see a high rate of Black people who are dying from COVID-19. And vaccine resistance within that population, and understandably so, given the history that we've had here. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Matt, tell us about what you do.
I talk a lot. I talk on the Atheist Experience. I talk on the Hang Up. I talk when I'm doing lectures. I talk during debates. I talk during magic shows. I've been president of the Atheist Community of Austin twice. I'm on the board of directors for American Atheists, and I put out videos where I talk a lot. As a matter of fact, my videos are almost always just like me staring at a camera and talking for somewhere between 10 and 45 million years. I don't know how to be brief about anything. And the reason, background wise, I was raised a Southern Baptist, primarily walked down the aisle at the age of 5, accepted Jesus into my heart, was active in the church through my teen years, and then went on to the Navy, where I still believed but didn't really give a damn. And when I got out, I went on to work in the tech industry and didn't care that much about my religion. I still believed, but the Navy kind of sold me on some religious notions, especially because I was in during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and had to process someone out of the military for being gay, even though they hadn't done anything at all wrong. Somebody else had gone into their bunk and grabbed a letter from their boyfriend and turned it in order to out them. Otherwise, they hadn't done anything. And so the policy was already a problem. But I remember standing there talking to the captain saying, hey, this is one of the best guys we've got. The asshole that went and turned his mail in, I'd rather get rid of him. He's a useless piece of crap. It's just really ruining, but it doesn't matter. And so that had kind of made me realize that some religion.
Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
Hmm?
Wasn't that still during Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
Yes, that's how they got him out.
Okay.
Because nobody's allowed to ask, but I found this piece of mail and it looks like somebody received it from their boyfriend, and then the master at arms have to return it. Now they've identified the person, and now you've essentially told even. But actually, Don't Ask, Don't Tell didn't apply out in the real military at all. It was only during at the point of enlistment, where you're going to go talk to a recruiter. They couldn't ask and you could tell. But outside of there, you could ask all you wanted to. And if somebody was, honest enough to answer, they could get in trouble. But
so bullshit.
Yeah, I wasn't fond of that. And I had grown up probably just about as homophobic as any other Southern Baptist had been. I remember, if I saw like two guys kissing and it'd be like, and I figured that was on like a natural response. It wasn't until years later. And it was actually, I was at Don and Elton's wedding, my co-host and his partner, and they jumped a broom and then they kissed and I went, oh, and then I went, hang on a minute. I just watched two guys kiss and I was like, I was about to cry rather than, so maybe this wasn't a natural ingrained response, and, we'd all come a long way. But as to why I do what I do, I don't know how to not do it. Okay. I stumbled across the Atheist Experience, and I called in the very first day I watched it. I went to the after show dinner that night. The very next week, I was screening calls and working on tech stuff behind the scenes. A couple weeks later, Jeff D forgot it was his turn to be on the show, and Ashley asked me if I wanted to do it. I had just written an article about the 10 Commandments rulings from the Supreme Court. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can go on and talk about that. I did it. I went home. My roommate was an atheist, but, at this point, neither one of us had been activists about anything. And he said, so did you have fun? I was like, yeah, I did the show. I was on TV. He's like, oh, really? What'd you think of it? I said, that's going to be my show in 6 months. And
oh, wow.
I didn't mean that in that I didn't mean I was going to be taking it away from anybody. It's just this is what I'm going to be doing. And and it was. I was moved into the regular rotation, then president of the organization, then host. And next week, it'll be 16 years I've been hosting EXP.
Well, next week's my first one on, I think, or the week after.
Week after. You'll be on. So like next week, I won't be on, because Jim and Dave Warnock will be on, and my girlfriend will be visiting. And then you and I are on the 20th, 21st.
So an exciting thing, sorry to just cut in here, but so because of the time zones, I'm actually going to turn 32 live on air at the end of the show. So I'll get some party poppers or something.
Wait, for this show or for AXP?
For Atheist Experience.
That's what I thought, because I thought Katie told me it's your birthday. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, we've done the line together before, but getting you on AXP, I've been excited. But I do it for lots of reasons. In lots of the reasons other people have given, you know, partially because I care about what kind of world I live in. Also, I used to joke that it was penance, even though I wasn't Catholic at all, for all the people that I tried to convince about Jesus. And but I've way outdone that. I mean, within the first year or so. But what people believe dictates what they're going to do and dictates how they're going to vote and whether or not they see other people as equal, or whether or not they're going to grant, you know, these rights, whether or not they're going to fight for somebody else's rights or just stay silent on the side. And so I don't know why. I don't think I had much of a choice in it. But when I see something that's wrong, it is harder for me to not say something than to say something. And when I see people actively lying or denying reality in an attempt to get power or profit and care about those things over people, I have to do something. If you go back to like a year ago, I debated Dinesh D'Souza in New York on March 1st. And for almost every point that we disagreed on, his entire answer had to do with profits and money and stock. And my answer had to do with people and rights. And it was about half to 2/3 of the way through that I realized this had been the case for almost every one of these. So being the honest shitster that I am, I called him out on it straight on stage and pointed out that every time we have a disagreement here about an issue, you go straight to the bottom line of money, and I'm going to what, you know, rights people should have and how to protect people. Why do you think that is? Why on earth? And this is why I love to do this. Now, I will say, just because somebody will ask it at some point, I did see the other day that Scientist Mel made this big announcement saying he had moral failings and he was maybe done with ministry and all that. I didn't dance around. I wasn't thrilled. I hope that what he did was something that, like, I wouldn't even consider a problem, like he's gay or, you know, he liked gay porn or whatever else. I hope it's that, because otherwise, if it's something like with underage people or without consent, then the church is actively participating in a crime. And this isn't just like drama of what did somebody do wrong. So there's a part of me that doesn't really care what side did. There's a part of me that absolutely wants to know. And I wish that churches were more open about it, not because I want side to be mocked. Matter of fact, I'd love nothing more than to find out that he was gay and they found out about it, because I'd be like, come on out, you know, I still will disagree with you on the God and everything else, but at least, you know, I could maybe do that. Now, I don't know I don't know anything any more than anybody else. And I mostly, like I said, don't care unless it was something that hurt people. Because when I see that, I gotta speak up. Sorry. I took pain meds, so I'm a little loopy, but especially in areas where I've made mistakes. I spent this many years as a sincere believer. And I know what that mistake was like. It's one thing to try to lecture people about mistakes you've never had. Like, I've never accidentally gotten someone pregnant. So that's just a conversation I don't have a lot of input on. But I have believed in a God, and I have been homophobic, and I have, you know, had a number of little issues. And the fact that I found my way out of them means hopefully that I have something to say that will help somebody else. And
it means you can see it better as well. Like, because you recognize what you used to think and say and believe just in someone else. And you can understand sometimes their own belief better than them, which is a bit of an arrogant thing to say and a bad thing to assume, but you often can.
It's the truth. I mean, it's, you know, it's somebody here's a fun example, because this is where I can't not do or say something. So on Twitter, I went off on the people in Idaho who were out there on the Capitol steps with their children burning masks. And I call, you know, they're anti-science idiots who are endangering their kids and anybody who comes in contact with their kids. And in fact, I think their kids should be taken away. And one guy was like, oh, yes, for a political thing, they deserve to go to an orphanage. And I was like, first of all, I think they'd be better off in an orphanage than around parents who clearly don't understand or give a shit about science or anybody else on the planet. But second of all, I'm not worried about whether they go to an orphanage. I'm worried about they or somebody around them gets this and dies. You do realize, the millions have died now, 500,000 Americans. And there was, I know I was going somewhere with this story and I took a left turn, but the thing on Twitter, somebody accused me of being too reflexive and being a little too hot-headed about this. And I'm like, I've been locked in my house for a year almost. As a matter of fact, it's been right at a year in the next week or so that I have pretty much not left. And people didn't believe it. Like, you really don't go anywhere? I'm like, yeah, there are entire months where my truck was never started, where everything was delivered. I am fortunate enough that I work for me and I work here. And that puts me in a position where I want everybody else to get vaccinated first, even though I'm higher risk than some, because I don't have some essential job out there where I have to worry about coming in contact with people. I can wait a little bit longer. And yet when I watch those people, it just feels like we're doomed, and I can't not say so.
Yeah, I totally feel that, like, can't not say something like that. I mean, that's the whole reason that I have like a Twitter that's so active and people following and stuff. It's just because if you care about trans rights, there are so many people saying things that are like plainly, like trivially wrong and misinformed, and also logically contradictory, which is the thing that really gets me, and also just like dangerous and harmful to children and other people. And like, I only, turn on Twitter and within 1 second I've seen some idiot saying some bullshit and I'm like, well, I'm just going to correct them. And then somebody's like 5 hours later, and that's my entire life.
I'm sorry, Katie, I remembered. And because I'm loopy, I'm going to try to get this in. It was about moral superiority and sounding arrogant. And this guy was like, so what, you think you're morally superior to those people in Idaho? And I said, yes, absolutely. Without doubt, I am morally superior to anti-science people who are burning masks and encouraging their kids to reject the science. And this guy comes back with, well, on what foundation? And I was like, go Google the superiority of secular morality, and you'll find my entire lecture on the subject where that question and every other question you're about to ask me have been answered. And he comes back just a couple minutes later with, yeah, but what foundation?
Oh, brother.
It's like,
oh, gosh.
I'm sorry your brain's broken. I will have a moral discussion with you at some other time. But if you can't figure out that I'm morally superior to people who are actively denouncing the science and jeopardizing people in the midst of a pandemic, it's not like we've vaccinated everybody yet. It's not like we're coming out. We can just now see light at the end of the tunnel. And you guys are like Wile E. Coyote trying to paint it closed.
Oh, God.
The whole state's just given up, hasn't it?
I should tell you about where I live. So when this pandemic hit, the first thing I did was join a couple of local Facebook groups for my community, because I used to teach biology out here, high school biology. So I taught these people's kids, for 4 years out in this county and a year in another county. And then I moved up to teaching college chemistry. But at the time, I could teach biology, physical science, and chemistry at the high school level. And so the first thing I did was like, I'm going to just start buying some cloth masks and I'm going to give them away to my community because we got to be safe. That was my thought. My mom lives across the street. It's like Mayberry. I don't know if y'all know what Mayberry is, like the Andy Griffith show. We got our own cooter down the street. I mean, it's like I live in God's country, farmland kind of. I know what they say in the churches out here kind of thing. So teaching evolution, a bunch of farm kids in the Bible Belt was a challenge, but I did it. So I go in this Facebook group and I'm like, okay, guys, look, I just want you to know if you need a mask, I can get you a washable one and you can wear it. I will send it to you. I will drop it off where we pay our utilities, whatever. I'll take it to the Kroger. They can hand it out to you and you can just reuse it. You can keep it, whatever you want. And if you have any questions about COVID-19, I'm an open book. I'm an open resource. I have access to experts. I will answer your questions.
And she helped me with that early on when this first started. So if you reach out to Scientist Mel, with questions about COVID, she will respond.
I got you, man. So that's the first thing I did. And then I started posting these questions. It got scary really fast. People started to go, how do we know she actually taught biology here? Then they started coming on my social media and saying, we need to find out if she's a real person. We think she has an Antifa agenda. And it just started to spiral into conspiracy theory. My neighbor just took down his Trump Pence flag like yesterday. Okay. So it turned into this. She's going to indoctrinate us with her Antifa agenda. Are you sure? I don't think she actually taught our kids. I'm like,
it's like the start of witch burning or something, isn't it?
It was like that. My mom she got so scared. She started texting me saying, delete your post and leave that chat because these people have guns and they do. And I'm like, my mom was scared for me. And so I had to block a whole bunch of people whose kids I taught out in this county and just leave that Facebook group and then it wasn't until like 2 hours later that the moderator's like, yeah, we're real sorry that happened to you. But, I'm like, look, if you know anybody who needs a cloth mask, I've got a whole bunch of them. I just want to give them out to people and help them. Yeah, okay. And I'm like, man.
Ignorance is not inherited; it's taught. So what we need to do is the only thing that's going to change any of that is education and breaking these people away from these unhealthy traditions, which is basically what it comes down to. They're conserving these traditions that have no purpose other than being traditions, and it's dragging us all down.
It's really, really scary. There's a sign outside of a computer store that's around the corner from my local grocery store that says, say no to Islamicare. It's like a permanent sign in the front yard of a computer store. And I'm like, why do I live here? It takes everything in me not to just run screaming through the streets. I really
Well, I had like my sign stolen out of my yard I live in kind of the similar kind of environment. And I've had, I put my signs up and people steal them. But yeah, you can have your Trump flag out all year long.
I actually installed wireless cameras around my house because I was so scared. I thought they're going to find out where I live and they're going to start doing it. We just had the KKK removed in 2005 off of our website. Around 2004. 2003, 2004, the KKK was listed as a local organization on the town website. So if y'all think that just magically went away, it did not.
That is grim.
To be fair, though, the KKK, until the resurgence in 2016, had less than 3,000 members in the entire world.
They probably all live here.
Yeah, most of them live there until Trump. And then all of a sudden it's like, evidently some people who had forgotten that they really enjoyed being racist decided to look into rejoining the KKK again because, I want to be a member of as many terrible organizations as possible.
We have downtown, we have a park called Nathan Bedford Forest Park.
Yeah.
And he's the founder of the KKK. And people are like, Nathan Bedford Forrest, he was a soldier in the Civil War who founded the KKK. And so he has his own park downtown. And people are, they'll say, well, we can't get rid of the Confederacy. No, it was written in a book that he did this. We don't need a park for everybody to see and go, hey, this guy, here we go. Let's name a park after him. I don't get it. We have books, we have museums, put that crap there.
One thing I'm proud of my city is, I don't know if you remember a while ago, there was that thing where everyone was pulling down statues and Bristol was the first. We pulled down our statue of Edward Colston, who was a slave trader. And there was a good video of them throwing it in the river and I was just like, yeah, Bristol. But yeah, everything here is named after Colston, like everything. So they're slowly now deciding to rename it all. But
Why, it's like, why would you name something like that if not to scare the people who were oppressed and remind
this
them
case,
what their place is? I mean, I don't get why that would even. Why would you?
that's the reason. But it's
Yeah.
also because he like, they're like, oh well, he funded the schools, he opened the schools. It's like, yeah, well, fuck him. Like,
and the other thing is, something I've been looking into is the colonialism, right? Because they took the slaves away, but then they took over the lands in Africa, and they peddled the religion, told the people, your religion isn't good, your deities are wrong, you should choose ours, right?
Oh, are you talking about the African Orishas?
Yes.
Oh, I got you on that. Oh, I learned so much about that. I read up so much on Santeria and hoodoo and voodoo. I love it. It's amazing, rich history.
And they told them, look, what you serve is wrong. I've seen videos where the colonial masters, they had pictures of a white Jesus. So it's a white blonde hair, blue eyes. And they're teaching the people to say, look, you need to get rid of your shrines, and here's the man for you. He's the one to do it for you. And so they when I was growing up, I've only ever known, the pictures of Jesus Christ that you see. Him looking so regal and looking so heavenly, and butter would melt in his mouth. And when George Floyd died, the church, a lot of things started to unravel, and the ethnicity of Jesus started, people started discussing. And that's the first time I realized Jesus was never a white man. I don't believe he existed, but why push this lie? Why tell these people you go
with blonde hair and blue eyes, no less,
take over everything they've got and tell them, no, get rid of yours and take on ours, and yours isn't even any better. Yours is it's a lie. It's nothing of value to it. It's crazy.
I think it's amazing. One of the things that I thought was just a beautiful way of taking your own religion and trying to adapt it to this new order, particularly when slaves are being taken from Africa and they had their African Orishas, Alagba, Oshun, all of these. They were forced to take in Catholicism, but they felt like this is my understanding from what I've been taught, and I could be wrong, but they took those particular Catholic saints and they're like, okay, this Catholic saint is very similar to Alagba. This one's very similar to Oshun. This one is very similar to, this African goddess and this African god. And so they adopted that Catholic faith, but with the faces of their African Orishas, so they could felt like they were not betraying their religion. And that was the spawn of hoodoo and voodoo and what we see, particularly in New Orleans. I love New Orleans.
You're right.
They did something similar to that with the Northern European tribes too, like around the 4th century or so, Ireland, and then of course the Scandinavian regions.
And the Romans did it too, didn't they? With Greek.
Yeah,
Greek gods,
Roman gods, but that's something that's quite amusing. Someone probably says, I hate New Orleans. How can you hate New Orleans? It's like a different
comment and I missed it. This is the one I wanted.
Tony Stark charming. Well, that's a heck of a compliment.
How long were you sitting on that? That was a good one, though. It really was. Tired of being owned.
Yes. Somebody else has said that about Otangelo about a million times. I just like the fact that I get to block him again. So if I send a comment at him, it'll unblock him, and then I get to block him all over again. It's just it's fun.
Oh my goodness. I don't understand how people cannot like New Orleans. It's like a different country, so rich, full of culture, and it's a true blend.
I don't like being around drunk people.
I don't like that. Don't ever go to Bourbon Street at noon on a Saturday. It smells like vomit and feces, but I get that. But outside of that,
being around
I
drunk
loved
people.
walking around there during the day.
I had a problem with the fleas.
I
My parents lived there for about 10 years, and when I went down and visited them, the house was so infested with fleas that from my knees down, my legs were just completely all bitten up.
oh,
I
my
once had two
goodness.
simultaneous different species of flea infesting one of my old houses.
like
which
cat
was
flea and dog flea.
Yeah, I think so. I you could see the difference, and like there was a different way to catch them, and it was a grim time in my life.
Bravo, you could tell me a little bit about this, but this was something I found absolutely astounding. Was my sister was living in that house, and my sister, she would go in her room, and nothing would happen. And I would walk into the room, and the fleas would just all start jumping out of the carpet. And if I left the room, nothing. It's like they didn't bother her, but they did me.
Like there was something in the scent that you were releasing that made you look tasty, and not her, or depending on if they were dog fleas, it could have been
They were dog fleas.
that you had a dog near you recently, then they were smelling that dog and kind of moving towards that. I don't know.
Also, I think with some insects and some people in combinations, as well as the fact that some people smell better to them or track them better with different chemicals, there's also the fact that some people don't react as well or at all to certain bites and others do. So you might be bitten and you just don't have the bump and so you don't notice it. And then someone else will be bitten the same amount of times.
When I go sit out on the patio with my wife, I can be assured I'm not going to get any mosquitoes biting me because they'll all go over to her because she's got more tender skin than I do. So she's like my living mosquito repellent.
I'm like really tasty for mosquitoes. It's terrible.
That's why I don't like spiders. I slept in a top bunk as a child, and so I was bitten by spiders frequently at night, and I would get up in the morning and I would have bites all over. And I know one time a spider bit me, and my whole lower arm was just really swollen. I looked like Popeye.
Oh goodness. Well, at least it wasn't like a brown recluse where it had started necrosis of your cells and just eat a hole in your arm.
What kind of spider was biting you, do you think?
No clue. It was just common, ordinary spiders.
Ordinary.
A wolf spider, maybe?
I don't know.
Well, I'm trying to think. What spiders would have? Because wolf
This
spiders
would have been
can't break the skin.
Wisconsin.
Oh
Wisconsin?
gosh. Almost a doctor says, what is the worst thing to get bitten by? I'd probably say a funnel web from Australia.
No, yeah, they're deadly. It really depends on, and it's kind of ties back to what Katie was saying about how your body reacts to the venom. Most venoms and most of the negative reaction is an allergic reaction. If you have your body has a bad reaction to a venom, a bee can kill you, but you might be fine getting bit by a black widow. So it's really depends on your body chemistry.
I've got a really horrible insect story. I was going to try and tell it before Matt got back because he's already heard it. But do you want to hear my disgusting insect story?
Sure, go ahead.
I go to a lot of metal festivals. I'll try and get through this quickly. I go to a lot of metal festivals, and I went to this one in Slovenia. And on the first day of this week-long festival, someone picked me up when we were dancing around and kind of threw me onto the floor. And I landed on this spike, and it went into my leg about 1 centimeter. And like there was this huge hole in my leg. It was like 1 centimeter round, 1 centimeter deep. Anyway, they said for the rest of the week, you can't go in the mosh pit and you can't go in the river.
That's no fun, but still, yeah, gosh.
So I obviously did both every single day, and then it got infected and all swelled up, and it got a scab, and I had like antibiotics. But then, so that was after 1 week, and then it kind of started healing. And then I went to another festival the next weekend in the Czech Republic, and so it just had that like the scab had just started, and I was just
I know where this is going.
Yeah, so I got I was then running around the mosh pit in Czech Republic, and someone kicked the scab off. So then like we drinking stuff, the next day woke up, and you know that kind of level of healing where your body's kind of glistening and it's not bleeding or anything. It's kind of created a new layer of skin, but there was just like a hole in my leg. It's like one
It's like a little dip.
Yeah. And we were just lying there hungover in the morning. And then someone was like, "Oh, Katy, what's that?" And I looked down and there was a wasp fully inside the hole in my leg. Like,
Oh,
like,
why you want to
chewing
give
out
us
little pieces of
nightmares?
flesh. It was eating, so it bit off this little like cube of flesh and then flew off with it. And I was like, oh, I don't know what to do because I didn't want to squash it because it would sting me. And like, so I just had to watch this thing just like, and I couldn't feel it, I guess, because it was all like, so I was like, right, I'm not going to leave my wound out in the open again.
Oh,
But then
wow.
I was infected and I had to have a second course of antibiotics. And I still have a scar today. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, question for you. What are the rules in the mosh pit?
This is a dangerous thing. So like I'm hype about LGBT rights and atheism, but like metal is the next level for me. So it depends. There's a range of mosh pits from like
Right.
the classic style punk ones where people just jump up and down on the spot to like really violent, like hardcore pits where it's kind of just like a fight. And then there's everything in between. And my favorite type of mosh pits are ones that you get in like thrash metal or death metal, which is where they have like lots of circle pits where people run in a circle.
That's
and
the
you always
ones I
run
like.
anti-clockwise. And my theory on that is it's because most people are right-handed and it's easier to run anti-clockwise when you're right-handed and clockwise when you're left-handed, but I haven't proven that. That's my hypothesis.
See, the last pit I was in was at a Linkin Park concert when they were touring with like 5 different bands, and there was no floor seating. It was all standing, and their rules were you don't throw bows and you pick up the fallen. That's
you always have to pick people up.
You pick up the fallen, don't throw bows.
There's loads of like because you can't throw punches in most mosh pits, but then you get to a certain level of violence and then it's kind of expected. So it's the same with all of these like the different layers. Like if you go to a certain band, you know there's going to be certain styles. Like you wouldn't do a really like pushing and shoving mosh pit at a hardcore show because that's going to be a swinging arms one, and you wouldn't swing arms one at a thrash metal show because that's going to be a pushing one. And there's all these different rules, but pick people up is always a rule, even in the most like spin kick horrible ones. So
yes,
that
was a test and you passed.
I have done so many mosh pits. I've moshed in 2 different continents and like 7-8 different countries. Like I'm moshing around the world, mate.
Oh, it's awesome. I love
the
a good
biggest
mosh
pit
pit.
I've ever been in was Korn. That thing was huge. Let's see, what year was it? Like 2016 or something. Went to see Korn, and as far as you could see was just this wave of people going back and forth. It was amazing.
I've done some serious wall of deaths. I did one in Earl's Court in London with Lamb of God, and it was like wall to wall in this giant venue. And like wall of death is where they split the crowd, and then at a certain point in the song, you all run into each other. And it was so far running that I didn't want to be in the front row because it was quite brutal. But then I was just a faster runner and I ended up overtaking the person in front of me because it was so far to run. Because usually when you run for like half a second, but I was running, you run for like 3 seconds and like, oh God. But,
see, you know why this sort of stuff is more popular in like Scandinavian countries and stuff than it is in the United States? Healthcare. Because there's no fucking way I'm going in a mosh pit given the state of healthcare.
That's fair.
Yeah, I've never had any like really serious moshing injuries. I tore all of my muscle inside here, but it like grew back and now it hurts in the cold. It's a bit Harry Potter. That's one of my worst ones.
You're a wizard, Katy.
I got punched square in the face once in a mosh pit.
Oh wow!
And it like gave me a deviated septum, which took me about a decade to fix. But nothing too serious.
I have not taken one to the face, so I salute you there.
I've got one interesting thing about the difference between like Europe and America. Apparently, perhaps you can all correct me on this. When people get drunk, they don't all fight each other. Is that the case? Because in England, without fail, at like 3 a.m. in any town centre in the entire country, there will be multiple fist fights.
Go to Camden on a Friday night.
That's probably why they close all the bars at 2 a.m. here.
Oh, well, whatever time they close. If in England, if they closed them at 4 p.m., there would be fist fights at 4:15. So it's just people get drunk and they fight, and then they go to A&E, and then they're okay.
I made the mistake of going to a pub right around the World Cup. It was the summer, I think, of, I can't remember, 2013 or 2014. I was out in London, and I was like at a pub in the World Cup, and England had made it to the finals. And it was like, I'm like, I need to leave because I think I might die. So, like, I'm gonna go. It's just, bye, guys.
Football gets people going there.
Oh my God, all over the football.
Oops. I was trying to get this comment.
A reputation for drunkenness.
There's it's funny going to international festivals and seeing different countries like attitudes to drinking. The Australians are pretty intense. Scottish people are pretty intense.
Oh God, yeah.
Have you been to the U.S., Katie?
No, I've never. The furthest west I've ever been is the Isle of Scilly, which is like just off the coast of England.
But you'll be here in Austin at some point.
Yeah, I'd love to
That's a
visit.
requirement.
Yeah, if you're going to go to any city in Texas, go to Austin.
Can I try a quick experiment? Because I don't know that I've used SteamYard. Can you guys hear this?
Yeah.
Yes.
The sad trombone. Okay. Can you also hear, let's say, where is it? This.
Very quiet.
Yeah, it's quiet.
Okay. Never mind. I have the G-Man soundboard that Dragnet. And I figured since we were having some fun, there would have been potential to use it, but that's not coming through.
Man. Yeah, I quit talking to him. He got mad because I wouldn't come on his channel and debate him about cancer treatments. It's like, then he watched my video on human evolution. His first comment was, I like her hair. And I'm like,
I think I might have fixed it. Is this louder?
no.
Oh, all right. Never mind. We don't need to hear from me anyway.
Did you all see? Did you all see G-Man with where you talked to Dr. Josh and with Beckel and Dallas Engineer? It was where he agreed to be that he wanted to be a slave. I believe was the the peak of it. So
God, G-Man. He told me I need to go into the kitchen and make him and True Empiricism a sandwich. I'm like, I make excellent sandwiches, but I don't make them for you.
Yeah.
True Empiricism. That's another one. Yeah.
Oh, I never meant to talk to him actually, and I ended up in a call with him a while ago on it, like years ago on another channel, and he just showed up, and I'm like, oh God, I don't do the whole debate people like that kind of thing because I feel like after a while I'm punching a toddler in the face. So it's like the only thing I can like equivocate, or that's not even a word. The only thing I can equal that to in my brain. I'm sorry, I have brain fog from being in my house all the time for my job and pandemic.
Yeah.
But it's like
a word, but at least the word you're looking for.
maybe I just okay. So the last time I debated somebody like that was Tommy Hall, who was part of G-Man's crew about cancer therapies. And I was 2 hours on that. I had a bottle of wine before I got started and finished a second, and I still handed him his rear end. And I was just like,
debate against cancer treatment.
Yeah, he basically he doesn't know how to read papers, and he would quote a paper, and I would sit there and like, do you know what flow cytometry is? No. Do you know what this word means here? No. Do you know that it says in the conclusion, it's not what you think it says?
I love it so much when people link your paper to back them up and you've never seen it before. And I always think, oh gosh, maybe they've got me. And then you read it through and like, honestly, more often than not, word for word, it will say the exact contradiction.
Our friend Otangelo in the audience there has a bad habit of doing that. He'll tell you, oh, the paper disagrees with me on the conclusion, but there's this line, this little paragraph here that backs up what I'm saying, and it's like, yeah, but if the conclusion doesn't match with what you think it does, then the paper is not supporting you, sir.
I mean, people do not know how to read a paper. And that's something that I do on my channel is try to teach you, how do you read a paper? So talks that I've given for like Nerd Night. I don't know if you're familiar with Nerd Night. I've given talks on how to read a freaking scientific paper. You can't read it like it's a Vogue article. You have to like, it's a challenge, and it's
Well,
practice.
most of them just read the abstract anyway. They'll just read that and they'll be like, "Oh, that's what it
Oh,
says."
look,
And
here's one sentence that looks like something that I know, and I'm going to throw that at them. And you're like, but did you look at the data? Did you look at the conclusion? Did you look at what they actually said? They said this was the problem with their data. This is the problem with the particular thing they're doing. It doesn't say what you think it does. So oftentimes it's like I'm the Princess Bride. You keep saying that word, but I don't think it means what you think it means. Like all the time.
I had to do
Brian, by the way, Princess Bride is a movie that was popular for Gen Xers.
As you wish.
I own a copy.
I love that film so much.
I had a video recently, Scientist Mel, where I was using a paper, and I knew that the conclusion supported me, and I knew that the abstract supported me, but some of the data, I had no clue what it was trying to say. But I was really fortunate that Robin happened to be home that weekend, and it was a psychology paper, and Robin is a psychology major. So I said,
okay.
Robin, what does this data mean? Is it anything against what I'm trying to say?
But
Do you also-
that's the thing.
Do you also find that when you're arguing certain topics, like you learn there'll be like 100 papers that say one thing and then one that says the other. And as soon as someone starts talking, you're like, I know exactly which paper you're about to reference because it's the only one that's going to, like, the whole of the UK anti-trans cruise thing pivots on this one paper from Sweden. And like everyone knows it inside out because they just always link it.
Like Wakeman and the anti-vaxxer stuff.
Yeah, it's the same.
Exactly.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Oh my
Recently,
God.
people
I
quoted
hate
in Parliament. They like a load of people allegedly plagiarized this thing and quoted it in Parliament. And it's like, how is this happening? How are they getting away with this? It's mad.
It's so frustrating because, and that's another thing I talk about. And I also love Ben Goldacre, by the way. If you've not read his book, Bad Science, it's amazing. Ben Goldacre is so awesome. And so that's part of what he does, is to take a lot of the medical and pharmaceutical type of papers and debunk here and there as needed. But that's one thing that was really bad, particularly with the media. The media's representation of science is so terrible. They'll sit there, like with the Daily Mail, the fear mongering associated with vaccines and that one paper by Wakefield.
Yeah.
They put so much press out on that and terrified everybody. And then it carried over to the US, and then the US had a thing.
People.
But there's not the equal amount of pushback about how vaccines don't cause autism, guys, largely genetic, but we would expect that because of the, and so you can go through and make all of these kind of very lucid, logical, responses to people, but they're so used to being spoon-fed all of this incorrect information. I want to put my head through the wall sometimes. Like, I'm drinking red wine right now. There was like a paper that said, you drink red wine, you burn as much of calories as you go to the gym. And I'm like, that is not what that paper says.
Have you seen
Daily Mail? The Daily Mail is quite good for all that kind of stuff.
It's terrible.
Good, yeah, it's good for it. Have you seen there's a website which is keeping track of all of the things that the Daily Mail says cures and gives you cancer? And it's just like a little bit like lobsters cure cancer, sharks give you cancer and cure cancer, smoking cures cancer, and they've kept track. There's like thousands of claims.
Breathing cures cancer because if you breathe, then you don't die.
What papers?
they browse they scan the papers, the peer-reviewed papers. They scan them for a line, just a little line that seems to indicate that's what it says, and then just run with it. Freaking pop science is, yeah. What's the service that you were using, Mel? I watched one when you were doing your Saturday stream.
PubPeer, PUBPEER, pubpeer.org. Elizabeth Bick runs that site. She's part of the people that it's a collective of a bunch of scientists, and they go through and look at brand new publications from various disciplines, and they pick it apart and see if there's something wrong with them. And Elizabeth Bick, she's on, I think she's Microbiome on Twitter. She does a lot. She'll post a lot of images, and her Twitter is absolutely phenomenal. She'll go through and do forensic type of science, and she'll go, okay, so look here, look at this image and look at this image. Do you see any replications? And so she'll take like pictures of cells, she'll take pictures of Western blots and the data, and she'll show you these are copied. They copied their own data. And then what they do is they go and they write the journal and they put in a formal complaint, and they can have those papers pulled. So I love PubPeer, and it's a great tool to teach you about what it is that scientists look for bad data, and what they look for and what a bad paper is. And they'll post and they put comments. It's just like freaking Facebook. Look at this paper. Here's all the things we found wrong with it. We're all writing letters to the journal. Good work, guys. It's great. I love it.
We are closing in on 90 minutes very quickly here. And so I do want to give everyone an opportunity for any closing thoughts and anything that they want to show for that they've got coming up. And Katie, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm very excited. I've got a new show coming up, which is called the Transatlantic Call-In Show. And basically, we're stealing the format of the Atheist Experience and Call the Line and all of those others. But rather than talking about religion, you can call in and talk to us about trans issues. So we'd love to argue with you. If you are wrong about trans issues, come and tell me why I shouldn't be a trans person. Or, if you want to ask questions that you're worried about asking because you have a trans friend or something. So that should be exciting. And that's going to be on the channel The Line. And I'm going to be on there with Arden, who is also great, Arden of Eden. And yes, so that's possibly going to be this Saturday will be the first episode. Hopefully we'll announce the time and stuff tomorrow. Yes, that's very exciting. And then also every week I do a show called Turf Wars on Friday, where I go through the last week's worth of transphobic bullshit, which is quite funny. I think I'm quite enjoying it. Well, I hate all the bullshit, but it's a good show. So that's all my main thing. Oh, and I've also got a podcast on YouTube, also on my channel, called the XX Factor, where we are looking at the conspiracy theories about trans people. And it's been pretty heavy recently because we've delved into a lot of anti-Semitism, but hopefully from maybe in the next episode, we're going to cover some more crazy stuff that's less heavy. But yeah, that's all my things.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to Cadence and to Johan for the super chats. I appreciate that. Matt, what do you have coming up?
I have no
Closing
idea.
thoughts.
No, so thanks for inviting me here. I've been wanting to come over and hang out for a while. Sorry, I was a little loopy today. But tomorrow I've got The Hang Up, which is my show that has nothing to do with the atheist community of Austin or Atheist Experience. It's on the Line Network, where I get to say whatever I want about anybody and everybody, including, Trump. And we did a lot of coverage with my good friend Andrew Seidel from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. This Wednesday, it's going to be David McCraney, who does the You Are Not So Smart podcast. And he and I have been friends for a number of years. We're going to talk about changing minds. Thursday, I'm having the carpets cleaned in the house. Friday, I'm doing a debate on whether Jesus fulfilled prophecy. And then starting Saturday for 1 week, I will not be talking to anyone, as Kristen will be arriving to spend a week spring break with me. So we'll have masks on and social distance when we're not actually, not social distancing.
You're not canoodling.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more.
Get to go to the show with me. Yay.
By the way, let me see if I can do this. I think I can do this. So let me click transition on my OBS, because in support of the Transatlantic podcast.
Oh, nice.
They
That's
tweeted
great.
this out earlier. So Katy and Arden have matching outfits for the Transatlantic podcast. And I about wet myself with how cool that was and how cool I'm not. So I can't wait to see the first episode.
Yeah, it should be good. And we're going for like a retro call center vibe. So I've written some synthwave music, and Arden's done some cool like retro call center art. So
There you go. All right, I'm back to normal. Yeah, I didn't get in this to be popular or famous or do it for a living or anything else. And for all the other people who are passionate about just making changes, for the people who can't shut up, for the people who have to get involved for this, go do it. We need more people. We need people doing it differently, because my way is not Katy's way, is not the African Humanist way, is not Mel's way, it's not Brian's way, it's not Godless Granny's way. We need a bunch of different approaches, because I'm not going to reach everybody, and neither are any of the rest of you. But together, we might really cover quite a group of people.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, that is such an issue in not only where Mel lives, but where I live also. There are so few atheists around here that, you know, it is difficult to vote anyone into office that isn't a Christian, because, you know, saying you're an atheist is the death knell. So, Brian, what do you have coming up, or any closing thoughts you might have?
Well, yeah, tomorrow I got a video coming out, and you'll find out about this secret aquarium I have over here. That's like right here next to me. It's full of creatures, and yes, it's a secret. I just put it together, and you'll get to see it tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Saturday, I will be talking about the evolution and the diversity of predatory plants, and we will be growing some Venus flytraps and pitcher plants.
Cool.
I believe Junk Shop Library is joining me for that. But for now, that's all I have. Well, and of course the perspective. I do go back on there. What day am I on there? It's Tuesday, the 16th. I'll be back on the perspective. It's Ethan's show, Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheist, every Tuesday night. Call-in show. We do supernatural claims. We actually had Katy as one of our guest hosts here recently, and I think she had a good time. Talked to some people with crazy ideas.
Spicy people. It's probably the most intense call I've ever had in my life was on that show.
That was pretty intense.
Nice. Esther, what do you have coming up?
So, because I'm fairly new to the atheist community, so I'm still trying to find my feet. But I'm working on a video, and it's misconceptions about atheists. Someone came to me and said, "Oh, you're an atheist now. I know that atheists have no boundaries."
You just run through the streets naked.
Does that mean you haven't?
No shame at all.
Does that mean you haven't got any boundaries? And then on the other end, now he happens to be a pastor. He's married, a pastor, and on the other end, he says, "Oh, you can keep me as a friend, you know." And I'm thinking, what's he talking about? Anyways, and a friend of mine, she has avoided talking to me, and she said she doesn't know what she's going to discuss. She doesn't know how she's going to discuss with me, because she just thinks. So I think because a lot of the Christians who are African Christians, being an atheist for a lot of them, it's a hard concept to figure out. How can you be an atheist? And they just automatically think being an atheist is devil worship, and it's so I'm trying to bring out this video where just dispel those myths and the things that they're thinking about. And also today I saw a video. One of the big pastors in Africa, he's come out and he said another big pastor told him Prophet Jeremiah showed up in his dream and had a one-to-one conversation with him. Prophet, what's the other prophet? Jeremiah, I think it's well, the prophets of the Bible have come to him physically. They've appeared physically, and they've had one-to-one conversations. And I think this is ridiculous. So I want to, just sort of debunk and hopefully start to do live shows in the future.
Do it. Wicked.
You know, I think that the story about Jeremiah was built just to make prophets be able to say whatever they want, because that's the whole point of the story. Is he kept saying, "Oh, God's talking to me and telling me this," and everybody's like, "No, he's not. No, he's not." And he was, and that's that. So they built in this kind of safety measure.
You are
for their
onto
prophets.
something. You're onto something there.
Yeah.
Scientist Mel, what have you got coming up?
Okay, so I've been kind of quiet on my channel the past few weeks because I've been up to my eyeballs in work with my job, with my grown-up job, doing the adulting and things like that. I'm hoping, what I'm considering doing is starting a second channel of just short videos, because my channel is primarily live streams. So I'm thinking about having little 10, 15-minute videos that are little science snippets, as opposed to the 1.5 to 2 hour long chats that I have with lots of people, which is really fun. But I recognize that that doesn't meet the educational needs of everyone. And that's not totally their jam all the time. So I'm considering starting a second channel of just shorter science related topics that are necessary right now, like how a vaccine works and how masks work and why they're important, and just basic things that I think people just to increase their quality of life in a non-threatening way. So
That sounds like an absolutely excellent idea.
I'm trying the best I can, but some days are not good days for battle. I'll be honest with you, Godless Granny. Some days are just not good days for battle.
And by the way, Mel, despite living really close to Nathan Bedford Forest Park, the area in which you live is one of my favorites in the country.
I should send you a message. Next time you're in town, I will take you to all the best places to eat.
So if I go to Nashville, I'm eating at Loveless. There's no other option. You have to go to Loveless Cafe if you're going to Nashville. If not, you didn't go to Nashville.
I don't live in Nashville.
I know, but I have to drive through your town or near your town to get to Nashville from mine.
If ever you're in my town, I will buy you barbecue on me, man. I know the best places, and there ain't anywhere on the internet.
Thank you, Yuhan.
Yay.
And I have a whole bunch of irons in the fire at the moment, probably too many, but there's a couple of things that came up that interfered with some other things that I was working on. And so I've got a bunch of stuff. And so first, I'm working on a produced video because the state that I live in, Alabama, has just passed in its state senate the Child Protective, I forget what it's called, Act, which is going to make medical care for transgender children a felony.
Oh my God.
And in addition to that, they are also going to make it a requirement and a felony for a failure of school officials to not out children that they discover are transgender to their parents.
Which could be fatal as well.
Yeah. It is absolutely horrendous. I think it's going to be totally unenforceable because at least as far as the school thing goes, it is so vague as to what it is that they are prohibiting that it's a completely unenforceable bill. So the whole thing is a complete waste of taxpayer time and effort. But what really scares me about this legislation and why I think it is so important is because it's not the only one. There are 32 states that currently have in the works anti-transgender bills, bills that specifically target transgender children. And so, I want to get this out, and then I'm hoping to get a panel discussion out. I may ask Godless Engineer if he would host it for me because I think it's really important. And he would, if I did it on his channel, it would get a lot more views than it would on mine. So I am going to ask him about that. I have a special episode of Why Are We Here this Sunday, the 14th. to host some people who normally stream at this time and can't make it at this time. So Neil, the 604 Atheist, and Ethan, your friendly neighborhood atheist, will both be here on Sunday at 5 p.m. Central Time.
She roboted.
She's froze up. She'll be back in a minute.
Neil's a great guy.
Yeah.
And he's a patron of mine. Thank you, Neil.
Yeah,
He's
Neil's
gonna-
also a tarantula lover, so that's what we always talk about.
We like Neil. Neil's good peoples.
Yes, yes.
Neil's good peoples.
You say I froze up? Am I back?
Yeah.
You're back. You're back.
Okay.
We're back.
Okay, so it's been Neil, Ethan, Critical Cripple, and Oz Tart on Sunday. Then on Tuesday, Jen, Aunt Jen, Jen's Little Corner. She is currently in the process of moving and has incurred some expenses. And so I'm just going to do kind of a fun little stream as a fundraiser to help Jen with her move in Australia.
Okay, when you get Critical Cripple on, you have to ask him about his exploding balls.
Oh, yeah, I know. I've seen that.
Wait, did I switch over to an episode of Secular Sexuality all of a sudden?
He sits on one of them bouncy balls. There's a whole story.
It was good stuff, though.
It was.
I've been on his channel a couple of times. He's funny. His critical questions get a little bit too personal sometimes. I'm just saying.
Did you see that I got the award for the funniest answer?
Did you? Congratulations, Thomas Granny.
I've got an award right here.
I have a Golden Turd Award from Hannibal and Monty, so that's all right.
It says I'm entomologically entertaining. It says so right there. Critical Cripple.
Oh my goodness. Critical Cripple, so funny.
Okay, so that's what I've got going on and what I've got coming up. And I want to thank everyone in the chat who has come. You've contributed greatly. I want to thank you so much to my guests, to Katy, Matt, Brian, Esther, and Mel for coming. This has been an absolutely wonderful time. And everyone just mask up, be kind, live your life.